morning, Shirley. I thought that today we can chat about something that comes up a lot with new homeschoolers. And the longer you homeschool becomes less of an issue, but it does need to be addressed, I think, for parents who have the concern, and that's the big socialization question. And do you think it is as big a deal as what folks make out? Why don't you jump in and give us your thoughts?
Well, with experienced homeschoolers, socialization is known as the S word because it's quite offensive when you're constantly being asked, what about socialization? Because once you've been homeschooling for a while, you come to realize that it's more of a non-issue than an issue. We're not taking our children out of the world and wrapping them in bubble wrap and cotton wool and keeping them in isolation under normal circumstances when there's not a pandemic. We are actually just taking them out of school and giving them the world as their classroom, and they are part of a society and a community that is multi-aged, so it's far more realistic kind of socialization than the classroom.
Correct.
And probably that's the end of the talk. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I always say to folks when we do consultations that school is actually the false social construct. There is nowhere in the world are all people of one age in one room doing the same thing, all supposedly on the same level at the same time. There is no way, not in, you cannot think of a single job or real world situation where that is applied, and yet that is what our children are subjected to for 12 years of their life, and that is now being made the norm. If we look at what the norm actually is family socialization models, as you mentioned, community socialization, and that we used to talk about it being rather a horizontal as versus a vertical age interaction. One of the
you mean vertical instead of horizontal. You got it the wrong way around.
But anyway, yeah, I told you I can't do maths. So if we look at that and we look at our home and we say we now have many different ages of children. We've got mom and dad and grandparents coming in, and when we're going out, our children are talking to the tellers at the supermarkets, and they actually learn better socialization skills than kids who are used to only socializing with 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds or 12-year-olds. But having said that, we have in all families different types of personalities, and some are introverts and some are extroverts. And we do need to try and cater for their social needs. So I had 3 introverts and 1 extrovert, and I'm an extrovert, so I enjoyed having people around and that sort of thing. But how did your kids, I know that there was a lot of sport involved in your children's lives, and what else did you do to incorporate that sort of social activity as versus the word socialization?
Yeah, I think like most homeschool families, we got involved with our local homeschool network, and we arranged outings to places of interest. We would go with adults and children of all ages, and so we would have the experience of group dynamics. Homeschool children are not very good at lining up, and they're not very good at taking turns to ask questions and putting up their hand because they're not trained in classroom etiquette. But those were amazing outings where we learned so much, and we'd always have a picnic afterwards and share lunch after we'd been somewhere. So, as I said, we didn't just stay at home, and then they did take part in sports and extramural activities, usually with children more or less the same age, but not always exactly the same age. And of course, that's a completely different situation than a classroom. So I think that's normal. And then they took part in whatever social activities we were involved in as a family. So I don't sit with 30 people my age every day, but I do, on occasion we'd have friends over for a braai, or we'd go to somebody for dinner, or we'd have a picnic, or we'd meet up with another family at the beach, or go on a mountain walk or trail or something together. That's what normal people do. That's normal socialization. And so our children just participated in whatever we are involved in as a family, whether it's churches or sports clubs or friends coming to your house. That is normal. And that's where they learn to develop the self-confidence to be themselves. And, you know, I had to regularly train them. When you go to somebody's house, I'd have to teach my kids manners, just like any other child who goes to school. And they have to learn to have the confidence to look an adult in the eye and say, hello, Auntie Wendy, you know, and have a little chat with you.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting story. There was a stage where we lived where my eldest daughter had a little friend who was a school-going child, and she used to often come over in the afternoons to play. And what struck me was she would come in and she'd say, hello, Auntie Shirley, where are the kids? And then she would disappear to the bedroom or the backyard, wherever they were, and she'd go play. And then my homeschool friend would come and visit with her two girls. And it was so different. They'd walk in and they'd say, hello, Auntie Shirley, you know what we did today? And we'd first have a conversation because I'm their adult friend, not an authority figure like a teacher. Yeah. And so they were much more comfortable being my friend than the child who went to school, where teachers are not your friend. They socialize in the staff room at break time, and they stand in front and they tell you to be quiet during lesson time. And I just picked up actually that difference. And it wasn't only me, because so many other adults, and you'll know this too, so many other adults find homeschooling kids such a novel experience to engage with, because they have this confidence to talk to adults like friends that school-going kids get trained not to do.
Correct. So in our children's teen years, we started a free-range meat business to teach them business skills. And one of the two of the places they were selling the meat was at a Waldorf school up the road and at a sort of green earth-loving market in Sakai. And in both those situations, you could see that our children were confident to speak to the parents of the school-going kids. The kids all kind of sat in a huddle on the other side, and the parents would come and engage with our kids. Our kids could talk to them about the product and, you know, prices, and handle all of those interactions. And at the Earth Fair market, the kids they became part of a broader community. They didn't feel like they were children. They felt like they had value to add. They weren't restricted by age. Some of the interactions were difficult, you know, when you have a vegan coming and yelling at you about your meat products. But at the same time, that teaches them how to handle difficult situations. So, you know, there's that kind of interaction as well. Business interactions are great. I will say that in their teen years, they all mentioned to me, looking back, that it was a little lonelier than their primary years. Primary years, there's lots to do and you're going places, but you know, in your high school years and you're spreading it out with Cambridge or something. And that was the time where, like you were saying, we would make our home the central meeting place. You know, have pizza evenings, have movie evenings, have braais and that sort of thing. One of the other lovely things that we did is we started a hiking group and a board game group. So once a month, we would go, a huge group of us, and hike somewhere on the mountain. And we would then also take turns with a bunch of, there was actually boys at that stage, it was just our youngest. And each parent would, you know, we would go to different homes and the parents would have a braai and the kids would just play board games for hours and hours and hours on end. And those friends are still part of my son's world. The other thing I wanted to touch on is we also have this false idea that we have to have loads of friends for our children. I don't think that is necessary, and sometimes not healthy either. I think the kids should have one or two really close, good friends that see them through life. And it's been a blessing for me to watch that in my eldest's life. Her first friends that we ever homeschooled, we used to do like a Friday play group when they were little, you know, preschool homeschooling. And those girls are now all married, and they've still got a young women's WhatsApp group because they're scattered all over the world now, young wife, and close friends. So it can be done. It just takes a little bit of effort, but it needs to remain in the box that it should be. It's not why, you know, we send our kids to school anyway, is it, Shirley?
No, I also just want to touch on the thing about we've had seasons where we've been busy and had a lot of friends in our children's lives, and then circumstances changed, that friend moved away or we moved house, and then it was a little bit different. But our children know how to make friends if they want them, and as you said, some are more outgoing than others. I've got one child who will be happy just doing his own thing, hello dog, all day long. And another who loves arranging. She's the arranger. She likes to arrange the outings and the events, So in every season, there's something to learn. So for homeschoolers who are perhaps in a lonely season, if you want that to change, maybe you've got to take the initiative to make things happen, or just accept that maybe this is a time to build family relationships and to become each other's friends and companions and get to know each other differently. And don't always think it will be as it is now. Things do change.
Absolutely. The other day, when chatting with parents, the one parent was quite concerned about taking children out of school, and they're so used to having this, 20 odd kids around them all the time. And the concern was, well, how do they, how does the child socialize? And we've covered that, but it's just important to make the note is that we are. Oops, sorry, we have a real visitor today. We are sending our children, for parents who choose to send their children to school, are sending them there for an education. They're not sending them there to, they're not paying 3,000, 5,000 rand a month for their kids to play with friends.
Absolutely.
They're going there to be educated and to have access to information. So, the point is to keep it in the box. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say on that note, sometimes parents think that their children are going to lose their friends if they take them out of school. And I say to them, if your child has good friends at school, those children will keep in touch, and those friendships they'll maintain them. They might have to work a little bit harder because they won't see each other every day at break time or in the classroom. But if they are good friends, they'll stay friends. And if they're just classroom acquaintances and they lose those relationships, well, they were probably never good, strong relationships in the first place. And then I would say, find your local homeschool group where you're going to be engaging with people who are on the same path as you and more like-minded, and you have things in common. And then you're going to have to build new friendships. So, school isn't everything. It's not the only place to find friends.
No, and if you are looking for that social interaction, be the mom that arranges them. We have said that, and reach out to others, pull them in, park days when they're little, arts, crafts, science co-ops. There's a whole host of things that you can do as a parent. Not all is lost. Well, lovely chatting, and we'll chat again.